In this video, I'm going to talk about crowdfunding for authors. Crowdfunding means you're basically asking other people to donate money so that you can pay for publishing. Publishing can be really expensive. I think the average self-publishing cost is about $2,000 per book, but I know some authors pay maybe $5,000 per book. I think you can get formatting and cover design, which is all you really need, probably for under $1,000. I charge more, but that's because I've been doing this for a long time. But I think you could get it done even for $500 and have decent quality work. But it's hit or miss. If you spend less than $500 on cover design and formatting, it's possible to get really good work done, but it's also possible not to get very good work done. But if you want to spend more, sometimes the problem is, you don't have $500 or $1,000. How do you get a high quality book published if you don't have the money to invest? So it may seem like a good idea to use a crowdfunding platform. And two of the big ones, there's Gofundme, which is one, and Kickstarter is the other. The difference, Kickstarter is meant not really to be asking for money. It's meant to be an investment in a creative project. So the way that it usually works on Kickstarter is I say, I'm publishing a book, it's going to be about this, I make a video, and then I say, if you pay this much money, I'll give you an ebook copy or a paperback copy or hardback copy, and they go up in stages. So for like $100, maybe I'll give you 10 copies and a poster, and you add in different bonuses. For $1,000, I will fly to your town and do a reading of my book. Those are a lot of fun, but the reason crowdfunding generally doesn't work is because you shouldn't be asking people for money to support your hobby. You shouldn't be asking friends and family to do it, and you shouldn't be asking your fans to do it. So what'll generally happen if you put out a crowdfunding campaign, and I forgot to mention, like, Kickstarter's for a creative campaign, Gofundme is more just asking for money. So if you have someone who's sick in your family and you need medical bills, Gofundme is kind of like an open platform to ask for whatever you want. You don't have to provide a return on the investment with Gofundme, whereas with Kickstarter, it's implied that people will support your project, but it's kind of like they're investing in it so that you can build the product and then they get the thing when you finish making it. So Kickstarter seems like a good idea for authors. The reason it's really not is because that's not where you will find your audience. That's not where your readers are hanging out already. The only time it makes sense is if you already have a really big platform and you can get like 75% of your funding budget met right away, then it might be featured on Kickstarter and you might reach more people. So in that sense, it's possible for like an established author to do something fun on Kickstarter. I still wouldn't do it because you're basically cannibalizing sales, which means I might sell 100 books through Kickstarter and raise $1,000, but those are 100 people that aren't going to buy my book when it launches on Amazon. I'd rather have the 100 sales on Amazon so my rank will go up and see more people who actually like my book and my genre, because on Amazon, when I go up in rank, I will appear next to the other best-selling authors in that genre, which is why sales there are more valuable than pre-sales on Kickstarter or something else. But also, I don't think you should ask your friends and family to fund you. That's kind of there's a weird thing with indie authors and artists where we think we're doing creative, world-changing work, and so we're not doing it for money, and so everybody else owes us a living. Like, because we're a nonprofit and because we're not doing it for money, but because it's a cause that we believe in, we think we're owed a living and that all of our friends and family should support us with their money financially, which is it's not a good thing that I think authors should be doing. I think it's not just the myth of the starving artist because most people don't make money. It's a myth of the starving artist because most artists are asking for handouts, and I don't think artists should ask for handouts. I think artists should provide value. If you are publishing great books that your readers value, they will be willing to pay for it. So your job is to convince strangers that your book has value to the extent that they're willing to pay for it. But that's your responsibility. That's your job. You can't ask people for money to let you figure out if you can provide value to them. That's a huge ask. That's having someone you don't know trust you to complete the thing that you are promising to make. And your friends and family, if you beg them enough, they may support you. You may get funding for your book, but that doesn't really benefit anything for them. They're really just doing it to help you out. And you can totally do that if you need to ask for money for things. If you're desperate, if you don't have any money, and you believe this is the thing that's going to break out for you and make you lots of money. I can understand why it can be enticing. You might think it's like a business, but you should also keep in mind every author thinks they're going to make lots of money on their book because they have a great idea, and 95% of authors don't make any money on their books. Most books never make back their investment. So if this is your first book and you don't know a lot about publishing, then two things are going to happen. One, you're going to drastically overestimate how much the book is going to cost. So I see a lot of projects on Kickstarter that cost like $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 to publish a book, which is kind of ridiculous because, like I said, you actually only need like a $500 or $1,000. And then I really think you should just work for 6 months, find other ways of making side income, save money, spend less. Really, if this is your dream and this is your goal and this is your project, you shouldn't be asking other people to support it. You want to be a provider and a contributor. You want to provide value to the world. I saw one recently. Someone asked me, they sent me an email because they have a Gofundme campaign. And it was interesting. It was a very big idea. A lot of authors, their first book, they want to go big and they want to have a huge idea. So first they found a PR person who promised to get them on like every radio show and TV show, ABC, everything. And they cost $10,000 or $20,000. PR people will promise to do that for you and get you on all the morning shows and stuff. I don't think that actually sells books. So even if you pay the $20,000 and get booked on all these shows, you won't see a huge amount of books sold, which is why it's not a good idea to do. And you don't really need that kind of money. And also he was doing this thing where he was going to get major celebrity singers and songwriters to write lyrics to put in his book, which would cost like $50,000. So he's trying to raise $50,000, I think, altogether to do this thing. Really big idea, pretty exciting, but not very likely to be funded, first of all, if he doesn't have a platform, and also even if he gets it funded and even if he makes the project, it's unlikely to recoup the investments because the thing that matters most is the book. It's the core content. Anything else like fancy stuff you want to put in the cover or songs or like extra stuff you think is good for marketing, that stuff doesn't matter. It's how readers are going to respond to the core product, which is your book. And you really need to figure that out before you invest a lot of money in it, which means you need to put out your ebook for free or put it on Wattpad, or start driving paid advertising towards a free book or an offer to get them on your email list so that you can get some of the right readers to give you feedback. Because if the right readers don't enjoy your book enough to like rave about it and leave reviews, it's not going to be a big seller. It's not going to be a bestseller. So for you to ask for people for money to support your thing that's not going to sell, it's not great business, and it's not a great, what's the word? It's not a good way to build a relationship with your readers because you're asking people to help you with something. For me, my first point of contact with my readers, who are going to be strangers at first, I want to be giving them value. I want to be giving them lots and lots of free value over and over again, so that they have a chance to like my books and they have the chance to appreciate me as an author, as someone who's giving them things, not asking them for things. If I'm at the point with my readers where I know they love my work and I know that they're happy to support me, then I would want them to do things that matter more than giving me money. So rather than do a Kickstarter, I would ask them for reviews. I would ask them to spread a campaign or retweet something or share something on Facebook. I try to get them engaged in my social media platforms. I want to ask them for things that really matter and that actually help sell more books. Like I said before, even if I get 100 people to buy my book on Kickstarter or whatever, just to make enough money to fund the publishing, that has nothing to do with the marketing. After you get the book published, you're still going to need to figure out a way to make people want to buy it, to put it in front of people. First, you have to get it looking good enough that people want to buy it. So when people find it, they like it and they want to buy it. Then you have to put it in front of people. Those are two different things. They're both really important. They're both much more important than other things. A lot of authors, they get distracted by big marketing ideas like renting a billboard or getting into the airport bookstores, or like big ways to reach lots of people. I hear a lot of authors say, this book is going to change the world. I just have to get on Oprah. That's like all I need is that much visibility. So they're willing to pay $50,000 to get the visibility because they believe in their book. So my point in this video, first, you don't need $50,000. You don't need $10,000. you might want to save money until you can afford, a $300 cover and pay someone on Fiverr to get the formatting done for you. If you need to beg $300-400 from friends and family to publish your book, that's something you can do. If you need to put it on Kickstarter to raise money, I'm not saying don't do it. If that's the way you need to do it and you believe in your project, that's fine. But also, not only do you not need a lot of money, but you should be starting out pretty cheap to reach your readers directly. You have to know how to reach your readers. So you have to learn enough about marketing and online business to reach your readers. And then you have to know how to position your book and package your book in a way that's going to be attractive to readers. And those are different things. So for all of those reasons and more, I don't think crowdfunding with Kickstarter is a very good idea. But for example, in certain cases, if I had a really big project that I thought was bigger or more fun or more different, that could get me a lot of visibility, that wasn't just like help me raise money so I can publish my book, but something really fun. For example, like I want to do a writing retreat in a castle, so I want to buy a castle to use as a writing retreat. That's more of a fun project. It's not good business, but it's good marketing, because if I do something like that, if my platform was huge and big enough that I could actually get it funded, or even if I could get it like halfway funded, even if I fail, doesn't really matter, because I would get tons of free visibility for doing a project like that. So if you can think of a really clever, cool Kickstarter idea that people get excited about, that could be good marketing. But if it's just help me raise money for my book, that's probably not good marketing. The other platform I want to talk about is Patreon. Patreon is something where your followers will agree to give you a monthly stipend so that you can do your best work, and they reap the reward. So if you have a lot of followers, and maybe it's a long time before you put out, like maybe you only put out a book a year, so you're having trouble making money from your writing, but you can put out a short story a month, or you can put out some piece of content every month. You may want to try something like Patreon, where you say, for $10 or $20 a month, I'll give you this thing. It might be good relationship building, because then you have fans who are willing to support you in making your art. Personally, I still wouldn't do it, and I still don't like it very much, because generally it's done by authors who aren't making a lot of money with their writing, so they haven't figured out the business of writing yet. And even if they have very supportive fans, I don't think you should ask your fans to support you when times are lean. I don't think that's your fans' responsibility. I think your fans will be happy to pay for the products that you make because they love your writing. And that should be the relationship. They should be happy to support you and to share your books and to pay you for new books. That's a personal choice. I think it could work really well for some authors. I think you could use Patreon as a way to interact with your fans, and it could work really well. Generally, I see people on Patreon and they make like an extra couple $100 a month, which for me wouldn't be enough. I think for some people, a couple $100 extra bucks a month would be great extra money, possibly much needed extra money. And that's great if you have a relationship with fans and you can get some money that way. Personally, I'd rather work for the $200 and focus on delivering more value to my followers and putting it out on Amazon, where it can reach more new followers. And but that's kind of, I think it's more a personality choice than necessarily a marketing choice. I do think, though, it could look like if you're on Patreon, you're kind of asking for money, like, please support me because my writing doesn't make any money. And that's not the right signal you want to be sending. Success breeds success, which means the more you talk about, this is another thing, it's a pet peeve. I see a lot of people say, it's what they should be doing. Like, when your book is doing well, you should be talking about how well it's doing. So you should be on Facebook saying, look, I'm number 7. I'm between these 2 authors. Readers don't know that actually that's a tiny category and you're not actually selling that many books, and that doesn't mean very much for you to get up there. Or when you say I'm number 1, or, some people say, I love this review that I got from my readers. It's so good. That's kind of like a humble brag. That's not exactly direct marketing, but is still marketing. It's better than saying, like, buy my book, it's on sale today. You do want to be talking about your successes. Again, I rarely do it, but that's also because I don't market to Facebook. I don't market to my Facebook group. I don't market to my personal Facebook. I never use for marketing or branding. which some people will say is a big mistake because I could be reaching more people. I generally get my readers on my email list. I let my readers know when my books are free, and then I use that momentum to drive my books up in the Amazon ranking so that they stick really high and then they keep selling to new readers. That's my process. It works really well. I make a lot of money that way. That's what I recommend that you do also. I think if you do, I mean, it's hard when you're trying to fund your first book. It's also worth keeping in mind, most first books lose money because you probably didn't write a book for market. So to fundraise for your first book, you may be getting more money than you need and spending more than you need to produce your first book and making all the same mistakes that I warn about. And later, after your third or fourth book, you'll realize that actually you can publish pretty cheaply and do a lot of this stuff yourself. You don't need to ask anybody for money. And then you can focus on really the profit, like building products that sell and focus on making more than you spend. I think anyway, those are my thoughts on Kickstarter. I don't think crowdfunding is a good idea for authors. I don't recommend you use it, but you can do your own research and decide whether or not that is is something you want to do or something that you're interested in. I do think Patreon is an interesting platform. I could see interesting stuff being done there. But generally in the Patreon author platforms I've seen, I think there are better things that they could be doing with their marketing rather than just sending people to Patreon and trying to get 10 or 20 bucks a month. I think you should be, also, something I didn't mention is that I think you should be sending traffic to your own platform. So if you're using Patreon or Kickstarter, you're sending all that traffic, even if you're doing ads, you're sending all of that to somebody else's platform and you're not seeing any benefits. Whereas if you send everybody to your own platform, it's going to build over time and attract more and more traffic over time, which is really valuable. If you get more traffic on your website, it'll be much easier to sell more books with less marketing or advertising or anything. So that's the process that I would go through. I hope this video helps.